finance, money. I mean, people are interested in shared ownership because they can't afford to buy a house outright. But that doesn't mean they're buying an inferior product. So let's talk about how you get the money together. What sort of percentage are you looking for in terms of deposit? Who wants to go first? I'll tell you what, you're a mortgage broker. Let's go for you.
Yeah, so minimum 5% deposit. So of the
5%
share.
of what?
The share. So
Right.
instead of 5% of the full market value, it will be 5% of the share value. So
You must have people crawling for your properties. No?
It makes it really affordable. For example, if you have a £400,000 property and you're buying 25% of that, it's a £100,000 share, and that could therefore mean £5,000 deposit. So it opens it up to lots more people than it would otherwise do, because we know that particularly in London, saving for deposit is the really tricky bit. So it's very accessible.
Being so accessible, do you get the wrong people applying? Do you have to turn people away that maybe have a bit too much money? At 5%, you might be tempted to engage in this process and you're not ready, but you just luckily got 5%. Or you just think, that's a cheap property, I can get away with that, I'll go for that.
I think it's really important to remember when we're talking about deposits is that your monthly outgoings aren't kind of that much lower. So buying privately, absolutely a lot lower, but you do still have the rental element and the service charge to go alongside that. So it's still, although that may sound really attractive, I only need £5,000 for my deposit, you know, we do still have to check that it's affordable for you, because you will still have a mortgage, rental and service charge payments that you need to be able to afford.
Okay, so how, I'm a renter, I'm paying, let's say, £1,800 a month for my rent. What would that compare with in the total of your costs then? I've got a mortgage to repay, and I've got the rental element of the part of a property that I don't own, and I've probably got ground rent and service charges, haven't I? I mean, what does that look like compared to a £1,800 a month property?
I think when we initially set up a scheme, we will always look at affordability, and private rent does come into that.
Yeah.
So we will always try to be just under that private
Under?
rental element. Absolutely, it's an affordable product. Although it's home ownership, you know, this is here to help people get on the property ladder. So we will take that into consideration. It's not always possible to be able to do that, but that is a main, or one of the main affordability criteria that we look at when we appraise new developments, so where we're going to build our shared ownership homes.
Okay.
And I think when you look at ground rent, ground rent doesn't apply normally until you fully staircase out, so you won't be paying any ground rent until that point.
Yeah.
Really?
But more recently, we've extended our leases to 990 years,
Yeah.
and we're charging a peppercorn.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think
At that time that happened as well.
Yeah.
probably similar here, where we have the ability to do it, we don't charge ground rent on our new homes. So
It's changed then, isn't it?
Yeah, you can't now anyway. Yeah.
So I'm a first-time buyer. I've decided I want to get a property. What sort of checklist should I be doing then?
So check that you're eligible, check your credit report, check that you're ready to go and obtain a mortgage, check that you've got enough cash saved to facilitate moving or have access to those funds. So in addition to the 5% of the minimum share, you're also going to need savings for moving, so your legal fees, your mortgage placement fees, and actual moving costs.
Typically, what am I looking at then?
So you're probably looking at about £5,000 in total, including your stamp duty land tax.
Okay, so I'm chuffed a bit because I've got a 5% deposit, but there's more to come there, isn't it?
Absolutely.
There's lots to add on. To make that transfer, that big jump onto the property ladder, painless. Because that's the thing, isn't it? You're so excited about getting your first property. You want the first 6 months to 12 months to be comfortable, don't you? So a bit of fat.
Mm-hmm.
How can I make changes to that property? What am I allowed to do once I own it? Can I decorate it?
Absolutely.
You can. We do recommend you don't wallpaper for 12 months because a new build, you're going to get some kind of natural movement, and when you buy a new build, you'll have a end of defects periods.
Yeah.
So for us, it's within 2 years, and we'll come back and we'll look at any movement. There might be any cracking, anything like that. So
It's snagging, really, isn't it?
exactly. So it's not a don't do it, but we do recommend not to wallpaper, just because we want to be able to see if there's anything that we need to make good for you.
Can I add to that? I recommend not wallpapering ever.
Or that, yeah.
I've just stripped 3 layers off my living room. And if I find you, I'm going to put that up. Okay, so you can make change. What about external? What repairs am I responsible for?
Well, interestingly, the new lease that shared ownership is operating under now, your provider, such as ourselves, is responsible for contributing to some of these external maintenance costs of up to £500 a year for 10 years. So you get support from the housing association, and also you can apply for other external works you might do. If you want an extension, that's not a no, absolutely not.
Really?
So you just need to get permission to make sure it's done correctly, and building control, etc. Have all been informed, so that it's as anybody who's having a mortgage would need to get some checks to make sure their property's still mortgageable. But yeah, it's really your home. We're just here to make sure that
Oh,
it's
that's
all
great
okay.
to hear. What about when you sell on then?
So the really important thing with that, so long as you've gone through the proper channels, if you do have something such as an extension, you will see the full uplift of your property value from that. So when you resell, we will only take what the property would have been before you made that home improvement. So by doing that and making your home more valuable, is you're actually benefiting from that while you're living there, and if you do look to sell.
So that brings older shared ownership properties into view as well, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you've got something that looks a little bit dated and I want to spend a bit of money on it, I'm going to get the rewards from that.
Absolutely,
Oh,
yeah.
that's fantastic news. Good answer. Okay, so I'm imagining I've bought a shared ownership property, I've loved it. 5 years later, I staircased, so I bought it with 5% and I now earn 10%. Who can I sell that property to? Do I have to sell it through you guys again, or can I sell it on the open market? What's the process?
So as a resale, when you're selling on a shared ownership home, you come back to your housing provider, and then we put the property on the market for you. So you'd get the property valued by a RICS valuer.
RSS, yeah.
And then the property goes on the market, and then we will market that property for you. And there's like a nomination period within your lease, which means you come back to the housing provider for us to be able to act as the estate agent and sell that home to another first-time buyer or someone else in need of a shared ownership home.
Is that because you hold the purse strings, or why is that?
It's part of the lease, and within the new lease going forward, it's a 4-week nomination period. So that means your housing association has 4 weeks to look for a purchaser for your shared ownership home on your behalf. And we're very successful in finding people that need shared ownership and qualify for shared
Well, I
ownership.
imagine a lot of estate agents don't really understand it anyway, so give it to an expert.
And if we can't sell it for you, then you can then go and sell it and market it however you like to.
Really?
Yeah.
So how long do you have to sell it yourselves?
It's a 4-week nomination period.
4-week nomination period.
So that where the customer comes back to us, we market the property for that 4 weeks, and if we've been unsuccessful in finding a buyer, they can go and put the home on with the estate agent.
Okay then. What's your success rate then in that 4 weeks?
Around about 90%
What?
of our resales
Wow.
that we retain to sell ourselves.
Bear in mind we're still selling it as a shared ownership property.
Yes.
Yeah,
If it was to go out to the agent, they could sell it outright.
yeah.
So what that does is remove affordable housing
Yeah.
from the market, and that's really, as housing associations, we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
We
Okay.
want to keep the affordable housing there.
And do I get the benefit of the uplift? in
Yes,
value?
Yes.
you do.
Definitely.
Absolutely, yeah. So it'll be done with housing associations. You are renting a percentage, not a figure from us. So if we see an uplift in property value, you will still get that percentage and we will get ours. So it is not about a kind of figure. You buy £100,000 stake in your property, you get £100,000 back. You don't, you get your percentage back. So
it's-
you benefit from that.
I buy it for 100. I buy my share for £100,000, and it's £300,000 property, you know, I've staircased, it's now worth £400,000. So I've made, you know, the overall profit is £100,000. How much of that do I get?
Depends how much you've staircased to. So if you've staircased to 100%, then it's yours, you have it all. If you've staircased to 50%, you get half.
So in that example, it's basically 33.5% that
Yeah.
you've bought to, you'll get that of the additional 100,000.
That's fantastic news.
That's the beauty of it. It's part ownership, so you get the benefit of the part you own. So you're not it's not a rental product. You're getting the actual growth in the market that everybody else is who's owning on a private sale method.
So we've talked about challenges facing buyers. What are the challenges facing you guys then? Imagine the bank of mum and dad being so heavily involved. You've got to educate people that probably are pretty much aligned with the traditional way of purchasing property, aren't they? So how do you combat that, or how do you meet that head on?
I think at the end of the day, if you look at the market that's out there, there's not enough property around. There's certainly not enough property for first-time buyers to buy. And when you look at London, if you were just to try and sell something at the full market value, there wouldn't be such a thing as first-time buyer, because it couldn't exist in London. And that's where shared ownership fits so well. And it enables people to live in an area that they consider their community.
Yes.
And it's for them to make that community, to make it work, to make Hackney work, which at one time nobody would have lived there, but now it's one of the most vibrant communities in London. You know, it's to make these areas your own.
Yeah.
You know, and
So you're responsible as shared ownership housing providers for people to be travelling around Hackney wearing bicycles as spectacles. It's your fault. That's really interesting, and it's also inspiring because as a first-time buyer, I can see the pathway quite clearly through speaking to you. I can buy a property, get on the ladder, and benefit from any rises in value, but also earn more and then spend more on the property in a safe way. I think it's a fantastic scheme, and long may it continue. Thank you so much for your time. It's really helpful and hopefully an inspiration for first-time buyers as well.